All right, day 2 of CoinGeek, I guess. Number 1, Jason, you gave a talk today on Memo.cash, and it was very enlightening about a lot of the future things we'll see out of Memo. But I guess generally we'll have this conversation about social media on Bitcoin, and you can maybe talk about what's coming in Memo as well. But maybe how we can solve the trolling problem in social media on Bitcoin. How is Bitcoin going to change the way we interact with each other on social media? What do you guys think, just generally?
Do you want to go first?
I mean, obviously, this is already an issue on Memo. There's a lot of people that have gone on there and troll. One of the things people brought up is that it costs money to post on Memo. So that's like already a little bit of a barrier against trolls, but still hasn't stopped all of them.
Yeah.
And as more people use cryptocurrency, it's gonna be even easier to get on the platform and do that.
Yeah.
So I don't think that's an effective barrier.
And maybe just like cost benefits. What do you guys see as cost versus benefits of using Bitcoin to drive social media?
Well, let me sort of give my own perspective, just because I think that and actually I have a question for you, which is, but let me start by saying on yours.org, we're a little bit more focused on actual payments rather than just using the blockchain. And so we deliberately create barriers in some cases. So like voting is actually quite expensive. You can tip on Memo, but we build in relatively large payments. So things like voting is always 25 cents. You can't vote 1 cent or less. Mm-hmm. It's always at least 25 cents. You can do things like tip less. But I just wonder, like if you've measured this, like what is the average size of payments? Like, is it mostly small actions that people are doing, or tipping, does that add a lot of money? Like, what is the average size of like basically a payment?
Yeah, everything on Memo is very micro, especially because we have things denoted in Satoshis. Tipping someone 1,000 Satoshis sounds like you're doing a lot. So people are like, 1,000 Satoshis, but really that's cool. Like, 0.25% or
just
something.
Just above dust.
Yeah. So I think if we denominated it in like US dollars or something, it might increase the amount of tipping that occurs, but it's pretty low.
Okay. So, I mean, I'll just say that from my perspective, I actually want to create barriers, because the reason I think it was on the panel yesterday, I'm just so irritated with trolling that I'm just done. Like, I just want to charge people money to send me messages. And the way it should work is, the thing is, for people who've experienced trolling, it's when they send you a message, because when you go to Reddit and there's a notification on Reddit and you have 200 messages that are people slandering you, that's trolling, because they're pinging me, right? It's not just that they're saying stuff. It's that they're like sending me a message and alerting me, and then I look at it and it's trash, right? Yeah. That's the irritating part. It's not a free speech thing. You can say whatever you want to say. When you send your trash message directly to someone, and an analogy would be something like, there's a difference between saying something negative about someone in public and then knocking on their door and they come answer the door and you're like, fuck you, or whatever, right? Like, that's different. That's not just free speech. That is like going out of your way to slander somebody. Well, what I want is, I will let anybody knock on my door, and you can tell me whatever you want, but it's going to cost, in the case of my house, I'll probably charge way more money, but on the internet, it's going to be like $10. You want to send me a message? $10. And that will eliminate 99% of these trolling.
Yep.
Right? And then people that seriously want to contact me, $10 is not that expensive. Like, if you have something real you want to talk about, and certainly if you're someone I know, obviously I would turn it off. Like, I'm not going to charge everybody. But if I don't know who you are, and there's frankly, given the amount of volume of communication, it's really mostly trolling. So instead of me having to read 200 troll messages, it'll be, you just give me $10, okay? And then maybe I give it back. I mean, it's not even about if I think the default should be to not give it back. I don't want to build an assumption that they have to, that they're going to get it back. But it's not about earning money, really. It's literally about creating a barrier, and you can do that with payments. So that's now we don't have this yet. There is earn.com does something similar. I don't think they do it quite right, though. I think they do it backwards, because I've never earned anything from earn.com, because it's like I get these emails that say, here's basically some token. And then instead of actually giving me the money, you're like, you send me the message anyway. I just can't, they should give me the money. And then unless I have the money, I don't see the message. That's how it should work. Anyway, that's just basically a product idea. But That's how I see it. I like the idea of actually creating barriers deliberately to help solve this problem. So this is just an app idea that I want to do with Money Button, where you basically go to ryan.charles.com, and it's very simple: subject, message, Money Button.
Yeah.
Type in whatever a name, type in whatever you want to, and swipe Money Button $10 to send me a message, and then I'm getting rid of email and all that stuff, so that I don't have to, or I still have email, but you don't know what my email address is unless you do this first, basically. And I just think this is important. Like, this is going to be useful. It's useful to everyone, but basically as you get a higher and higher profile, especially if you're willing to say controversial things, it just gets more and more ridiculous with time. Like, the amount of trolls just increases.
Yeah. It's actually noteworthy. I think Roger Ver, it actually costs you $100 to email. I'm 90% sure.
Okay, great. And that it should be, right?
Yeah.
And it should be that with the higher your profile is, it should just be more and more expensive. But it seems like a fine idea to me. And it's not about free speech. Again, it's like, you can say whatever you want to Roger Ver, but publicly. But if you want to send him a message and have him actually read it, it seems like a good idea to me to actually charge money for that.
Yeah. So there's actually there's two integrations with Bitcoin we're talking about, right? There's payments, just using it to allow payments to drive conversation, like in the case of yours, right? And there's using it as a ledger, right? And actually using the ledger itself to drive conversation. I guess I'm curious with Memo. There was that one we were actually just talking about this earlier with Dale, right? But there was the one person that came on and was just constantly, they were paying the small amount of money it took to send, dust or whatever, and putting a lot of just very vulgar things in the blockchain, right? So you mentioned in your talk today that you're interested in having an algorithm, I guess, designed for people to determine basically, are there people that you would want to associate with? So maybe you can just talk about, I don't want to
Yeah, sure.
anything. So
do you want me to comment on
sure. Yeah.
Okay. So I think the situation right now is pretty dire as far as trolling and how it goes on the internet. So I think there's lots of ideas that are an improvement over the current situation. And so I like your idea. I do have some concerns over if I live in a poor country versus a rich country, if I can, how am I going to afford to pay $100?
But I can't read these anyway, because if I'm sorting through 200 slanderous messages, I'm not seeing the actual genuine message hidden in there, right? But anyway, but it's a serious concern.
Yeah. Anyways, just a little some on that. So from my perspective, which is a totally different idea, to try to solve the same problem.
Yeah.
Was what you were talking about is basically a web of trust is kind of the term, and I didn't create that term. That's been around for a long time. So on Memo, you're connected to people, and then those people are connected to people. So you can basically, based on your connections and the number of your connections that are connected to that person, decide how much should I listen to this person. Yeah. And you can still see the people that have really low percentages, but they might be smaller or whatever.
I like that idea, because that does actually mimic how it actually works in the real world, right? It's basically networking. How do you? Because there's a similar problem. Because what if you're basically someone who's poorly networked, but you're a totally genuine, smart person or whatever, and you should be connected with this person, but you're not.
Yeah.
You then have to network your way to them, basically, right? So it's different, but it has a similar problem, right? So because if you're from a poor country, you have to earn enough money to be able to send me a $10 message, right? Versus you have to network to someone who knows me. So it's different. I'm not sure which one's better, but it is a different solution.
Yeah. I do think the first part could also be solved. If there's a message that a lot of people find good enough that they want Ryan to see, you could probably build a system too, where similar to yours, if there's something that's very good and you vote on it multiple times, maybe they will get the $10 to forward the message to Ryan, for example, right? You could
hybrid.
Yeah, exactly. You could build a system that probably.
That's a great idea.
Yeah.
That's a great idea, right? So, and that's another app list. So these are I'm going to add that to our app list for Money Button, which I think I did publish it, but I didn't publish it in a very good way. These are apps you can build. You don't have to use Money Button, of course. It'd be good for me if you did, but build it however you want to. But that's a cool app idea, right? It's sort of like messaging crowdfunding. I've got something important to share with this person, and I want to raise money to give to them to prove to them the seriousness of this message. So imagine, for instance, you had something really important to say to Roger Ver, and you're like, look, this is real. I need Roger Ver to understand that DSV is a subsidy, and I'm going to raise $1,000 just to give $1,000 to Roger Ver, just so I can give him and convince him to read an argument that DSV is a subsidy. Now, it's a weird example, but I mean that in seriousness. You could imagine, tons of examples. Like, just to give another example, this is kind of a weird one, but there's people like to write scripts for movies and send them to Hollywood producers, and they get so many of these that like they can't even look at them. But imagine one of them. Some of them are good, right? But they don't even have time to read these things. So imagine you do crowdfunding. I'm going to please my friends invest money in my project to crowdfund enough money to literally just send the script to a producer that can actually read it. And you crowdfund $1,000, $10,000, whatever, how much money would be appropriate for these people to actually be worth their time to read it. That's a great idea. And I've never thought of that idea before.
Same with, as you're saying, I'm thinking like legislation, similar thing, right? If you have.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Now because then you get into weird things too, because the legislation, because I know exactly what people are going to say as soon as you say it. Corrupt, because then you have people that have lots of money that are like paying off and buying legislation, which is how it works anyway. But in any case, but yeah, it would be interesting to think through how it works with legislation as well.
Yeah.
So would this be something that, because I'm just thinking, what if the person doesn't read it or doesn't click on it? Would there be a way maybe
so they don't get the money?
Smart contract.
So like you basically do, well, it depends on how it works. But yeah, I don't mean to interrupt, but yeah.
Well, I was just thinking maybe there was a smart contract way. We've been talking about smart contracts a lot the past couple of days. Maybe there's a way to refund, all those people.
Yeah.
I
think they would have to give it back. In my opinion,
Right.
The way it should work is they should just be honest, and if they don't read it, they give it back.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
I think that's how it should work, and you trust them. So
Right.
if you imagine raising $10,000 to give to someone, and they're like, I don't have time. They're going to have some type of reputation for doing this. Like, especially if you imagine an app. You'd be like, imagine you could just see this person received several messages worth $10,000 each, didn't read them, and didn't pay them back. Then you're going to stop raising money to give this person messages because they're obviously just dishonest. But if they don't read it, they should just give it back. There should just be a policy that's how that should be like the culture, basically, that they should just be honest about it. And if there's someone it's worth it for you to raise $10,000, surely they can also have enough honesty within them to give the money back if they don't actually read it.
Yeah. Maybe, there's a lot of talk of IoT and sensors. Maybe one day we'll have sensors in your eyes and you can tell if you actually read the whole thing, right?
Like Black Mirror. Yeah. One thing I was going to say is, isn't there time locks and stuff you can potentially do? Or you have to, I'll send you the money, you have to move it to another, UTXO within a certain amount of time, or else I can pull it back.
Yeah. So do we think, obviously, especially with the fork and the divisions and the last fork, there was divisions there's more divisions now. What is the current state? I mean, what do you notice, I guess, different? Actually, this is an interesting question. What have you noticed different, if you do follow the other areas of discussion? Has the discussion on memo been different than what you've seen because people are for, and the question goes for yours as well. Is the discussion different on memo and yours than you see on free platforms like Reddit, YouTube, things like that? How do they compare if you have noticed a difference?
So Reddit is interesting because it's like these communities, and if you post something in our Bitcoin, it's instantly going to be if it's anything not Bitcoin related, it's going to get shut down. And now our BTCs kind of come that way against BSV. So you'll basically get silence if you try to post in those places. So if you look in there, you're not going to see anything BSV positive, or you're not going to see anything Bitcoin Cash or BSV positive in our Bitcoin. Twitter is, I feel like, a little bit more. You can actually get the word out. It's not, you're not locked into this community. And so I feel like Memo kind of falls similar to Twitter, where you can represent both sides fairly, and one side's not going to get silenced.
Sure.
Yeah.
But you can say whatever you want to on Memo. I guess it's just that the way your reputation, you have some type of web of trust or something built in, right? Do you want to just maybe explain how does it currently work, and then what are your ideas for how it should work as you develop it in the future?
Yeah. So initially the problem we had on Memo was just fake accounts. So someone would just be like, "Oh, I'm Ryan Nick Charles," and then they post up and it's like, "Ryan said this," and so that's sort of separate.
Okay.
But it's the same underlying sort of solution, which is, we started giving basically sort of personalized reputation or based on connection. So if someone posts something, you can see the number of people that you follow that person. So it says, Ryan Charles said this, and it says 0% of the people I follow this person. It's like, okay, it's probably not the real guy.
Right.
And so that kind of applies in sort of any type of discussion. So like, how much should I listen to this person, and kind of the percentage should tell you, how much you're connected to them. And
Okay.
It's not the best indicator right now. All we have is just a visual indicator. It doesn't actually change what we.
But it is interesting because you face this problem where you have genuinely permissionless signups. Like, so you really like there's you have to solve it somehow. And I mean, it might not be perfect, but it sounds like it's got to be a lot better than nothing.
It solved our initial problem, but it doesn't solve like the reputation,
Right.
or there's more that it can.
Because there are all sorts of other things that happen. And of course, like, just because someone is well connected doesn't mean what they're saying is true or good or whatever, constructive. I mean, you could have someone like, just for instance, like if you do it based on, I don't know, like just to say like, I don't know, I might follow someone because I want to see what they say, even though what they say is always incorrect.
Absolutely.
So I need to be clued in because maybe they're influential enough that I follow them for that reason only.
Oh yeah.
So that, I guess that's the issue. Is that it? Or
Yeah. So I mean, I'm in the same boat. I follow probably just as many people that I disagree with as what I agree with, because I like seeing other opinions, and just following is not a good indicator.
Yeah.
That's the indicator we're using right now because it's easy. But the member app, which is like another memo implementation, actually has like ratings and stuff, and so you could do that on like a user, like, okay, I'm following this person, but I don't want to actually like take their opinion seriously or something like that.
Yeah.
Or not take their opinion seriously, but I don't want to give any weight to their connections.
Yeah.
Okay. And then maybe there's someone else that you like really, really like, and you want to give them a huge amount of weight. And so you should be able to control that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I will say for yours.org, the charging money for stuff did reduce the amount of trolling. I don't think it went to zero. For a while, we had no trolls. And then I think it was just inevitable that there's some trolling on there and there's incorrect information. But also we let people pick prices. So like you can do things where you make comments free. So for free comments, it's more likely to be trolled. So there is less trolling, but it's not like it eliminates it.
Sure.
But then again, the amounts of money are relatively low. No one is charged. Anybody that like the $10 ones, people have tried it, but usually like 0 responses is what usually happens. So we haven't had too many people have success with large payments.
Is there any way to, I think, like I've heard you talk specifically about the difference between what you see on YouTube comments versus what you see in Reddit comments.
Yeah.
I think the problem with Reddit is that it's trivial to make fake accounts. Like it's trivial to make fake Google accounts, I guess, for YouTube,
Yes.
but it does seem,
They do that on purpose, right? I mean, that's literally a part of Reddit's mission. They actually, that's a deliberate product feature of Reddit, that they want it to be easy because they actually have many power users that have like 10 accounts and that maintain 10 different pseudonyms. And they know that as a company because they can do things like look at the IP addresses and whatever else, right? So they actually know it's the same person with like 10 different or more pseudonyms. And so they can study that as a company. And they don't publish that because it's private to the company, but it's similar, or private to the person, but similar to like any other company where you might have private data that you can analyze, but you're not going to publish it. Mm-hmm. So you don't see that, but it is true. In fact, I'll go so far as to say, I'm pretty sure they said this stuff publicly. I mean, even like the employees of the company have multiple accounts. I mean, they all do it. It's a part of Reddit culture because they value that anonymity of the internet. I mean, and they take that seriously. And for what it's worth, I mean, there is a very good reason to do that, which is for a lot of people, you're actually in a situation where you need to maintain your privacy and you need to be able to communicate with people without they knowing who you are and while maintaining a separate identity. So this is, an example of this would be people who have, transsexual and stuff like that, where they're just like, they can't let their family know about the situation or something like that because they know how bad it would be for them. And they have to maintain a public persona and then a different private persona. And so that's really, Reddit makes that possible. And so they do that in the product. So things like you can just spool up a new account with no email, it's that easy. But they then have to address all these other problems. Like, well, then you have so many trolls that they have to do, complicated data analysis to like do things like change the way the upvotes work and stuff if you're a new account and all those things. And so they have a bunch of issues around that, but there are good reasons to do that. It's a really good feature.
Sure. Do you think I think what I've always found interesting, like Craig has actually a very laissez-faire attitude about any kind of social media. He doesn't really think that social media itself, you have discussions. To me, it seems like it should be the new medium where like actual information should be shared. And like, it seems like it can be a tool I'm sure for all of us, it's been a tool where you've learned a lot and you've had good conversations that have changed your mind about things and you've learned things. But it's also, there's the opposite side of it where there's just like, there's no benefit to some of it. I actually believe, I believe the RBTC phenomenon of we are free speech, censorship free, whatever else, it's just a marketing tool when in reality, Reddit is so manipulated that there isn't actually a free and open discussion because it's really just people driving the narrative in some capacity. And I guess what I'm asking is how do we make social media itself valuable? Like how do you make the conversations on there valuable? Is there any way for us to leverage Bitcoin to do that? Is there any?
I don't know, but I have an idea about how to go about solving that. Have you noticed that people in person are usually nicer than they are on the internet? There is something about the internet where people like it's either not being there in person. It could be the cost of it because there is a bigger cost to actually meeting in real life. But it could also be just seeing people and just being there and like, oh, I can see you. Like it's not just typing trash on the internet. Like here we are.
Yeah.
So a way I would look at that is how do we make social media a little bit more like the real world? Because in the real world, people are much more polite than they are on the internet.
Yeah. So interesting sort of tangent on that one. I don't know that's the science behind this, but someone was telling me when you speak, you're actually using a different part of your brain than when you're typing. So it's kind of like typing is like your raw thoughts, like your stream of consciousness. Versus speech goes through a filter of like, you think about things before you say them. I don't know the science behind it, but it made sense to me. So it might
I'm sure it does because it uses a different part of your brain, right? The speaking is literally some part of your brain that's different than typing. And there might be, who knows, I'm obviously not a neuroscientist, but who knows? There's probably some part of other thought going on there that's being activated. So here's an app idea. Just the same exact thing as Reddit, but you have to say it vocally. That's it, right? So like everything, it ends up being printed in text and you can read it, but everything is transcribed as you say it so that you cannot type a message. You can only say it. So it forces you to use that part of your brain.
Yeah. That's an interesting idea. Yeah.
Yeah.
I only accept audio messages.
Yeah, really. Yeah, that's a good one. Yes, exactly. It has to be transcribed. I only read transcribed audio messages.
I've considered it would be interesting if I've noticed at least there's a lot of that changes when they are either in person or they're on video or something like that. They become antagonistic if build like a bounty system to get people that are just constantly either pseudonymous or anonymous on the internet or even not anonymous, some of them, and to force them onto a stream of some capacity, right?
I think this is why I keep mentioning money because I think the real answer here is actually correct incentives.
Yeah.
That why would you waste your time trolling people if it costs you money and you don't earn anything? What if by creating high quality, valuable content that you earn money? Because then you don't waste why would you waste your time spending money and losing money when you could be earning it?
Right.
And so if the incentives are well designed, I believe that is a good answer, right? And in fact, it seems like just kind of correct to me ultimately that it should be profitable. It doesn't have to be money. It can be other things. Like it could be like you profit in terms of learning something or whatever. But by using money, you can make it really, really well, if nothing else, quantitative about actually earning money for doing something, for doing a good job.
Yeah.
But it's hard to think of what those incentives are. And I don't think I've fully solved that one. I've got lots of ideas, but I don't think I have the right way to incentivize content so that you create really what you want is things like the truth, right?
Sure.
Like how do you incentivize that? If we do that, we would revolutionize everything because we would revolutionize science, right? I mean, there's a whole complementary problem here is like scientific publishing where there are really weird incentives in the scientific publishing industry. I mean, it's just really weird as hell. I mean, like these universities pay ludicrous amounts of money to subscribe to Nature. The scientists don't earn any money. They give all their time and effort for free to these publications that earn money on their behalf. And then the universities have to pay a bunch of money that just comes from donors. Like the incentives are just weird and out of whack. The way it should work is if you're creating high quality truth, basically by running actual scientific experiments and discovering things about the world, you should earn money for that.
Yeah.
And so that's how the incentives should be designed. And that's not at all how it is right now. But if we solve that problem, I mean, that would change everything. It would accelerate science. I mean, it would literally direct human civilization to discover true things more quickly.
Yeah. So where do you think the shortcomings of yours are when it comes to, obviously that was one of the things that you probably wanted to solve, right?
So yours really was, I mean, in order to make yours, the reality was we spent 1.5 years developing routed payment channel technology. I mean, most of the effort was just trying to make it work technically. So we had these ideas about how it could work that we didn't put that much time or effort into because we didn't have the time available. Like if we don't make the payments work, nothing else matters. So what we actually launched with yours.org, in August of 2017, was a collection of payments models that were just random. I don't say random, but just ideas that don't really mix very well together. So yours.org really was an experiment. It was just like, okay, finally we can make it work, because basically when Bitcoin Cash launched, it actually was able to be workable. So there are a lot of issues with it. Like basically what I would do now is, that's again, one of the reasons why we made Money Button, because what you really need is, all right, let's just abstract away the technology, because what we need to do now is we need to make more focused apps that solve specific problems so that we can know whether they're working or not. So that's why I like making something really simple, like pay me $10 to send me a message.
Yeah.
One app. You don't need to build that into Facebook where it does everything. It's like just one app. And then Money Button is just the technology that allows you to send the money. So that's how I look at it now is, okay, we made yours.org and it just has, it has issues where I could go into, but it just has product issues. I don't think it was really the right product. And I think that we can solve all of these problems better, but we need to focus and do them one at a time rather than building a giant Facebook-like thing. We need to just solve them one at a time. And then there actually will end up being a Money Button ecosystem of apps that just use Money Button that solve different problems. And then we can be, basically, I think we're going to have a much better shot at solving them one at a time. So that the pay me to send me, a message thing just solves like one specific problem, which is basically if you just get tons of troll messages, you just have to pay me money. Mm-hmm. But it doesn't solve every problem, and there are new problems associated with that. So, but Money Button allows us to just try new apps. And so that's really part of the reason why we made Money Button. So the way I look at it now is the way we fix yours.org is actually to make an ecosystem of different apps that are designed to solve these specific problems. And then the ones that work well, we build on those and continue those.
Sure. I guess, I mean, what are your general thoughts about where Bitcoin is heading? I don't know. You guys are both kind of in the social aspect of Bitcoin, right?
Well, can Jason share your thoughts of it? Because you took a similar but not exactly the same approach as we did to basically try and span the split. I mean, what do you think about basically ABC versus SV and your plans with Memo, and then just your opinion on everything? I mean, what do you think about it?
I mean, I think as like a user, I don't really care, what people running the internet are doing behind the scenes. So I don't really care what people running the Bitcoin network are doing behind the scenes. So, for us, I tried to take like as neutral as just like we're gonna try and broadcast, make everything not split like you said, and let this thing get figured out on its own, and try to like not commit ourselves to one side or the other.
Yeah.
So that's how we sort of try to handle that. But it is really disruptive regardless, and it's caused literally the least activity we've ever seen on Memo has been after this split, because
no one wanted to send money, probably. They're just afraid, probably, because they're like, I don't want to lose my coins or something.
Yeah, and also like we had to turn some features off on the site to like make it safe to not split coins, and so like certain people's accounts weren't working as well. So yeah, it was very disruptive.
Okay.
But
then do you plan to maintain two of these in parallel? I think, is that correct? You have two of them working in parallel right now. Is that accurate?
Yeah, there's actually sort of three. So there's sv.memo.cash, there's abc.memo.cash, and then there's just memo.cash itself. And so the SV and the ABC are just SV or just ABC, and the memo.cash is still trying to do sort of the no split policy. But it's becoming clear that that's probably not going to work long term, especially if replay protection gets added, although it sounds like that wouldn't be for a few months.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure exactly how that's going to play out. But yeah, memo.cash, the main site is, the intention there is to follow the greatest proof of work, which is currently
okay.
Yeah.
So then I'll just say, sort of as a message to those of us who have decided to go with SV, probably the most important thing we can do to basically get memo.cash exclusively on SV would be make SV grow bigger than ABC in the next 2 months.
Yep. So that would help. Yeah.
Okay. So keep that in mind, whoever's watching this, and but it's true, and that's why I made a decision early, because I knew there would be cost to make a decision, but like, there's no way we're just going to be on 2 coins. I'm not going to make 2 versions of Money Button. I think it would be horrible. Like, the whole thesis of Money Button is there's one form of money. Like, we don't need, we're not about generating an ecosystem of many different coins. This is about, let's just have one form of money and focus, and then we can solve these problems by using money. And having 2 of them is just like, it's a giant waste of time and resources, in my opinion. So we focus on one of them. The problem is, it was incredibly unclear what to do in this situation. And so I had to basically predict what I thought was likely to occur in the future, because the present, like, things change a lot. I mean, whatever the hash power and prices and stuff, I figured it could easily change. And I also knew that because we are like I'm personally incredibly vocal in the community, and our company is well known, I'm like, well, we're also probably going to be influential. So I knew that by making a decision early, we could actually help shape what happened. So that's why, as of right now, I'm writing an article called "Bitcoin SV is Bitcoin," and which I believe is true, and I'm going to argue all the reasons why that's true. It's basically the original protocol, and it's not just about the longest chain. The longest chain is important, but it's also about the protocol. Like, is this actually going to work? And I believe the original protocol will work. So which one is going to be the longest chain in the end? Which one is going to be the longest chain 1 year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, 100 years from now, right? Because if one of them dies, it could be the longest chain right now, which I think BTC is. I don't see a future in BTC. So it doesn't matter whether it's the longest chain right now. Who cares? Which one's going to be the longest chain eventually?
Yeah.
And so I have to actually try to make a prediction. And then once I make the prediction, try to shape events to make it happen. And so that's why I think we need to build the SV ecosystem as quickly as possible. There's no time to waste. Do it right now. All these ideas that people have about stuff they want to do it right now. Now's the time. We have a stable protocol. Now, it won't be stable if it dies, but it won't die if we build it right now. So just build it and keep it stable, and we'll build the ecosystem starting now. And it'll be a self-fulfilling prophecy. It'll be stable because that's exactly what we're doing. Keep the protocol stable, build on it, and we'll make it win. And don't waste any time at all. Do it right now. It's actually a very good situation if you look at it from that perspective, that now is the time to build. It is stable, and you're going to be able to do a real business. It's hard, but it's always hard. I mean, you have to solve the real, actual hard problems. You're not going to get free money by making a shit coin, right? Like, people basically got free money from idiots last year because so many people were just buying based on 100% marketing, no substance, right? I mean, it's history repeating itself, because it's just like these trash companies in the late 90s that had nothing. These tokens had even less, right? Like, at least in the 90s, they had to go out of the way to become a public company before they could go through a hype cycle. They at least had to work, even if it was completely fake. It's a lot more effort than just writing a white paper like many of these tokens did, right? They were completely without substance.
Or even just a website. Yeah.
Or even just a website, not even a white paper, right?
Yeah.
So, it's hard, but it's literally the perfect time to start a company right now and solve real problems, because it's not hype. And you're gonna realize that you're not gonna be distracted by cheap money. You're gonna have to actually focus on solving the real problems. But when you solve the real problems, you've got a real business that's actually gonna work and it's gonna last. And it's not gonna just vanish in the next bear market. So it's a great time right now to do it. So that's how I look at it. So in the next 2 months, let's just build the SV ecosystem, and then Jason won't have a choice but to pick SV in January.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I would say that the market crash, or as much as painful as the split has been, I actually am kind of happy with the market crash because it's like weeding out all the crap.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see it as a natural evolution. You've definitely taken a more active role in shaping this evolution. I've been more trying to stay on the sidelines. But no, it's true. I mean, you can have an influence if you want to, by choosing a side and building on that side particularly, for sure.
Yeah.
So I don't know. History is weird. Like people say like Betamax is better than VHS, yet VHS still won, and there's all kinds of examples of that. So I find it hard to like fully commit to anything. And sort of, I realize that I am part of the market, and so it's a weird place to be.
So I think part of Unwriter's article is that he said, or was that before the article he wrote about a week and a half ago? I think he said that the application developers themselves are the capitalists in Bitcoin, right? They're the ones that choose.
Yeah.
I think that is true. I think the whole longest chain thing is it's still an interesting question, right?
Well, as much as we like miners in SV, it is still true that these economic nodes, which are basically businesses, do have influence.
Yep.
So, even if the miners ultimately have to basically make the toughest decisions about what to mine because they're just dumping money into whatever, and they better be right or they're going to be losing a lot of money. The businesses have a lot of influence. So even if you're not mining, you can help shape things in your own favor, which if you're right is good for everyone, right? I mean, it's okay. You should act in your own interests, because you should profit, because if you're doing a real business, we want you to win. We want you to survive and keep doing it, right? We want Amazon to continue to grow because they're doing a great job. I love buying stuff on Amazon. Make a real business, create real value, and that's it. And you're doing what's in your own interest, but you do it in a voluntary, peaceful way with other people. So,
But wouldn't you say this is also a byproduct of a split itself that we have to have? But I mean, this is kind of the interesting thing, right? Because you said, I mean, in a way, though, miners could have made this decision. Like their ABC could have killed SV right after the fork if they wanted to. Right?
Yeah.
We could have had no SV chain, that just didn't happen. So now we are in this another split situation, which I think has a lot of negatives. I think it might end up having positives. Like I feel very. This conference this is all business. Like there's been nothing speculative about this conference. It's been just solutions that are all trying to build on top of Bitcoin SV, which everyone is just saying stable Bitcoin. That's the whole message. But it stems from the fact that we had to have another split for that to happen, which is, I think.
Well,
sorry.
Well, so I'm just gonna say. I mean, I think a lot of people wanted a split. Is in reality what happened, and there's no getting around that. Like if the community is split, it's just split. I mean, things got increasingly divided for various reasons. I'll not comment right now on that. I have my own opinions, but I think a lot of people actually wanted a split, and there was just no way to work around that. I mean, the whole unified coin idea that we tried to push for, and that you're still doing that in your way. We just didn't have the support of many of the companies that we needed support from for that to actually be effective. So the wallets weren't able to do it. And then if the wallets don't do it, I mean, basically they can just create a split because they just split off. I mean, they can do whatever they want to do. So, if people want to split, there's no getting around it. So, yes, at scale, it will be completely different. Yeah. At scale, if Bitcoin is world money, you decide to split off. I mean, you're just not going to get 50% of the world to agree to you to split off. So I don't think it would happen at scale. At a tiny, tiny scale, it happens.
Yeah. And, I think sort of like the choose SV versus ABC is sort of a subset of a larger thing of, that's kind of like the users choosing. So either, even as a business, you're still a user of the Bitcoin network. So I feel like we're still in the same situation we were with the BTC BCH split, where like all the businesses have to choose each side. And so that's so by staying neutral, I'm sort of voting for like miners, please choose this stuff for us. And like I'm tired because if users are going to keep choosing these, we're just going to keep splitting. People just naturally divide. I mean, there's tons of reasons.
Well, that's why so the differences between ABC and SV are extremely subtle in every way, like technical, social, and everything else. But on the SV side, we are incredibly focused on a very simple idea because the protocol was solved. So fix it. This actually allows us to focus more strongly than ABC because ABC actually has to solve a different problem, which is how do they improve the protocol? So rather than just focus on scaling, they're like, how do we change the protocol and scale? I believe their problem is harder. Now, if they think it's necessary, it's really not necessary though. You don't actually have to change the protocol at all to scale. So we eliminate wasteful thought, basically. So by focusing very narrowly on scale only, and that means we have to solve the technical challenges and adoption, but it's focused. It's like quit wasting time on anything else. The only thing that matters is scaling. That's it. We got the protocol stuff settled. There's nothing to argue about there. So by focusing, I think SV has the advantage. And I think that ABC, they're going to add Schnorr signatures. That has nothing to do with anything. I mean, I know they're going to say that they're smaller or whatever, but the reality is it's not going to make any difference to scale. The other stuff that they're doing is just not, they're not even going to raise the block size as of the current plan in May. They're just not actually as focused on scaling. They're doing other stuff. They're entertaining other interesting ideas, but they're not focused. Or if they're focused on something, it's something else. And I don't really know what it is because I've said this before. I'll say it again. I'm not offending anybody to say this, but I honestly don't even understand what their vision or roadmap are. They published a roadmap, which we can now see publicly they did not actually follow. I mean, the change to the checkpoint stuff was not on the roadmap. So what is we can't even trust whatever they write down as a roadmap. It's not even the real roadmap. They just do whatever they need to. So, and I don't know what their vision is. Do you guys, I mean, like, I genuinely would be like, please tell me what is the vision of what they're trying to do, because I don't quite understand what they're doing.
Well, I think what's a more interesting question, this is way off topic, but an interesting question is, what does Bitcoin Unlimited think of the vision of ABC? What is the vision of the shared groups? Because I think what I've seen, Tom Harding, it seems pretty frustrated with what ABC is choosing to do, right? So that's from the Bitcoin XT perspective. What are some of these other groups that this was supposed to be a collaborative initiative between multiple developer groups, and it doesn't seem like that's true. In fact, I actually personally, I've said this many times, and I echo you, I guess. It seems to me like if Peter Risen is, the leader of Bitcoin Unlimited, then he's only going along for the ride because it's anti-Craig Wright. There doesn't seem to be an actual agreement as we support checkpointing, for example.
Well, they don't agree. I mean, they didn't even have a chance to agree to that, right? Post facto, they try to rationalize it. So ABC just says, here's what we're doing. Here's the new code. And BU that day is like, what is this? And then you can see their threads, like the bitcode.in conversations and so on. Like, they're like, what? You just changed the consensus protocol with no discussion at all. Now, then they go to debate. Well, then, but it's not really a change because of such and such. Well, is that going to be how it is with whatever changes they just push on the network, right? I mean, the reality are the leaders of the protocol. It is not a collaborative effort with BU. This is just a reality. Like, this is not theory. This is like, look at what just happened. What just happened is ABC directly communicated with exchanges and got everyone to adopt it with zero discussion with any of the other implementations. They decided unilaterally, suddenly one day what to do. Here's what we're doing. And again, I know they're rationalizing it post facto, but you keep doing stuff like this, eventually they make a mistake. This won't, for me, it's like, so for the different developer groups, they don't agree. So you'll notice things like, they didn't even like CTOR, right? Like they didn't like CTOR. They didn't agree about any of these things. And so what are they going to do? To what extent does BU and those people have their own mission? Because I would have thought their mission was to make Bitcoin world money. But if their new mission is to just do whatever ABC says, what is that? Are they really behind that? I don't think they are. They're actually, what they were in this particular case was uniformly anti-Craig Wright. And that was it. And so what we're going to see now is we're going to see continued disagreement. So I actually think the ABCs, and I'm predicting this because Amari's criticizing me. He's like, I'm not saying this is your published roadmap. I'm saying I'm predicting what's going to happen based on knowing all these people in the space. So what's going to happen is, this is a prediction. I know you didn't say it. I'm not lying when I say this. I'm predicting what's going to happen. I know all the people involved. You guys don't actually agree, and you're going to keep disagreeing. This is a prediction about what will happen. There's going to be disagreement after disagreement because Amari is just going to keep doing what Amari wants. and he's just going to knock off one after the other. Anybody that disagrees just goes away because Amari decides. So this is not, I'm not lying. I'm predicting what's going to happen. And I don't see how it would be any other way because they don't agree. I'm sure they would. I mean, ask any of them. Like, what did you think of it? They give you their own opinion, which wasn't, let's just cram everything in, whatever Amari wants. No one agreed to that. So I think they're going to continue to have turmoil. They're going to have social turmoil as the BU developers and basically all the other sort of major players grapple with what's actually going on, which is that it's controlled by Amari. And whatever Amari decides is what happens. And they're not going to agree to that. And that's a prediction, not a lie.
Kind of going back to the vision too, and you asked what is their vision, and I don't think they have a vision. I think that's kind of where they find pride in that. Not in the regards that they don't have a vision, they're not going any direction, but I think they like the idea of having experimentation as well, and kind of figuring out these new things, trying out new things, but we're here all about sound, stable money, and for me that just wasn't the selling point of stable network when you're dealing with a lot of people's finances as well. Yeah. So I think that's kind of another discrepancy. It is a lot of anti-Greg Wright and disagreements in terms of personalities, but I would say that the vision of unknown and just kind of experimentation with the protocol is kind of their route as well. That we should be open to change, more change. But I think at the base protocol, sound money is what we need. And when you're dealing with people's finances, that's extremely risky.
Yeah,
I actually think we should adopt the vision of Bitcoin solves Bitcoin's problems. I think that is a beautiful vision to have. I actually really enjoyed that simple statement. I talked with Daniel Lipschitz earlier, and he's built a instant transaction solution on top of Bitcoin as a service, right? And he said specifically that we are an example of Bitcoin solving Bitcoin's problems, right?
Yep. And I neglected to mention him in my talk because I even described a service exactly like what he did. Yep. And I just forgot to actually mention his company. But yeah, Gap 600, they do exactly that. The whole thesis of the company is solving Bitcoin's problems with Bitcoin.
Yep. Well, he neglected to bring up his own company in his own presentation.
So. Did he really?
Yeah, he mentioned it at the very end. He was like, oh, yeah. And even up here, I was like, we should talk about it. And he was like, no.
Okay.
Should advertise, because I didn't even know that the solution existed. And
I'll tell you, if he listens to this, I mean, he's probably heard this before, but in my opinion, I think you should change the name because it's actually hard to remember that name. The name to me doesn't actually resemble what it does. So I think that's a problem. If I were in his shoes, I would try to come up with something like, you should call it instanttransactions.com or something like that, right? Call it something where the name captures what it is that you do. Because to me, Gap 600 means nothing, and it's hard to remember what the name is.
Yeah.
Well, there's only so many websites available.
True. Gap550.com was taken. So.
We veered off, I guess, from social media, and Jason probably wants to remain neutral, so we should keep it neutral here.
Okay.
But yeah, I don't know. I think I will say it's been very good to be surrounded by a ton of people that all agree that Bitcoin. Again, this was the main thesis of your presentation. Bitcoin is good enough for what we want to do, which is payments, and seems like everyone here does agree on that.
Well, I look at it I agree with that, but I would just change it slightly and just say that what Bitcoin is sound money for the entire world. And that part is what's solved. There are other problems to solve, but if you've got sound money for the entire world, this is like the most valuable central element that we have to have. So it's not that Bitcoin by itself solves everything, but we can use Bitcoin to solve all these other problems. So that's just how I look at it. So payments are actually like, you do have to make better UI, right? I mean, like, it's not really solved, because you really do need to be able to do it easily. And this requires basically making businesses that actually solve it in a complete way, not just at a protocol, but all the way up to the end user experience to actually making the payments and so on. So in order to do payments, you have to do more things. But the base layer is what's solved.
Yeah, great. Well, anything else we want to cover?
Well, I'd say Memo, everything we have ever planned for Memo works on the current Bitcoin protocol. The only thing we need is bigger blocks. So I'll say that much.
Great. Well, then that's another reason. If SV can pump out really big blocks, and you can think what would Memo look like at scale, and SV is scaling more quickly than ABC is, that would be a compelling reason to pick SV.
We just need to increase adoption.
And I think we should, I mean, one thing we didn't even mention about the aspect that I think Bitcoin does allow, which obviously what Memo has created is an uncensorable platform as well. So, because there is concern, there have been obviously social media platforms that have censored or removed people from even participating. And I do think using an immutable ledger as the way to write your opinions in, that's obviously a positive thing. I think there are then how we can get all of these things into one giant application where the incentives are correct and you can have the immutable ledger where
We're on the right track at least.
I think so.
It'll take time.
Yeah.
But we're hitting on the right things, I think.
Cool.
I
encourage everyone to watch your presentation when it's available because there's a lot of cool things going down Memo's pipeline. And obviously yours from yesterday, the money button presentation, and yours. Thank you guys for doing this.
Great. Thanks for talking with us.
Yeah.
Great.
Very good.
All right. Thanks.